Hello my friends, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about something that's a really important discussion to be had, and that is whether therapy is expensive or not. And the reason I want to talk about this is because a lot of people feel that they should take part in a therapeutic process, as we call it, but feel that it's too expensive for them. Let me start by saying that when we talk about something being expensive or cheap, we can't really talk in absolute numbers because value is not something that is absolute. For example, $200 session of therapy might be something that's way out of reach for someone because they have low income, and it at the same time it might be something that's too cheap for someone that has well above average income. So it's not really about the numbers, it's about the percentage of the total income of the individual. When we are talking about percentages, yes, therapy can be quite expensive for some people. But when you say that something is too expensive, you generally have this discussion about objects. Let's say you want to buy a pair of jeans, and you tell yourself that, okay, $500 is way too expensive just for a pair of jeans. But we're not talking about jeans right now. We're talking about mental health, which has broader and much more complex implications than a piece of clothing might have. The whole issue revolves around the fact that therapy should be something that is within reach of a person, but not too cheap for him not to take it seriously. So when I daydream about how things should be, I really think that pricing for therapy sessions should be percentage based, and it should take into account the actual income of the individual, and the percentage that I feel that would be the most fair for everyone involved is between 10 and 20% of the monthly income of the individual. So that would be 10 to 20% of that income to go into paying for the therapy sessions for that month. And this may sound steep to you, and it may sound again too cheap, but I think it's fair because therapy should be something that is expensive enough for you to care about, but not expensive enough in order to interfere severely with your lifestyle. So you should be able to pay for the sessions without letting go of really important stuff, without not having money to buy groceries or stuff like that. But it should not be, on the other hand, too cheap for you to think that, okay, it's too cheap, I'm not gonna get involved so much, it's just another thing that I do, it's something trivial or something to not really take very serious. So it's a really delicate process, and it should strike the balance somehow. However, that's not really possible, and I don't see it becoming possible anytime soon, actually, because for one thing, you can't really check someone's income, someone's actual income, and there's no surefire way of doing this. And on the other hand, some people really are way below average income. So that 10 to 20% would still be a very low amount of money to actually make economic sense for someone to take them on as a patient. And for people in that situation, I think that governments should actually become a lot more involved in the matter, because I don't think that any government around the world actually takes the subject of mental health seriously enough. Some governments do a lot better than others, of course, and it's a matter of public health in some countries. But still, I don't feel that any government does a good enough job regarding this. And this leads me into the next point that I'm going to make, and that is the actual cost of doing therapy versus the actual cost of not doing therapy. Let's say that you find therapy to be too expensive for you right now, and that's fine. But my follow-up question is, what is the actual cost of not doing therapy right now? Do you ever stop to take that into consideration? Because it's very easy to say that, okay, I'm not going to pay $200 per session 4 times a month, and so that adds up to $800 a month because it's too expensive for me and I can't afford it. That's fine. You know your own economic situation and so on. But did you ever stop to actually calculate the cost of you not doing the therapy? Because that's something that most people don't take into account. So let's take an example for instance, someone that has depression. Okay, going into therapy costs X amount of dollars, but what is the cost of not going into therapy? What is the cost of that person maybe not going to work, not earning an income, not being able to care for herself, not being able to feed herself? What is the cost of that person on the other members of the family, on the husband or the wife, on the children, on the relatives, parents, and so on? Let's take another example. Anger management. So if a person has anger management issues, let's say that we're talking about a man, although it's not always the case. Women have anger management issues almost as much as men do. But let's say that it's a man for now. What is the actual cost of that man not going into therapy in order to deal with his anger issues? What is the cost of that man ignoring his issues and eventually starting to beat his wife, verbally abuse his wife, physically abuse his wife or his children, or both? What is the cost of the wife having to leave home and take the children with her? What is the cost of divorce lawyers? What is the cost of the trauma that's experienced by everyone involved with the story of this family? Because it's when a husband hits his wife, the effect ripples through society, because we are all interconnected. We are all part of smaller or larger groups of people. And that effect, the effect of that violence ripples through all these groups and affects a great deal of people, much more than we actually are inclined to believe that are affected. So the husband hitting his wife actually is trauma, and and in my opinion, is trauma on the wife, but on the husband as well. That doesn't justify his actions. That doesn't mean that we should feel sorry for him, but it is a psychological effect. It is trauma, even on the aggressor, and it should be treated as trauma. It doesn't mean letting him go off the hook, but it's something that should be addressed. We are always we are mostly inclined to side with the victim, and that's fine. But we should always we should also take into account that the aggressor has issues, and those issues might have to be addressed at some point. So the trauma created by this domestic violence affects the husband, the wife, the children, if any, the parents of the two, of the husband and of the wife, their friends, their co-workers, their bosses, their relatives, and so on. So just one act of violence could actually affect tens of people. Not some people, but 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 people. And a government that ignores this issue is, I think, irresponsible, because prevention trumps treatment in almost every case. So it's better to prevent than to treat something. It's better to prevent the violence from taking place in the first place than treat the eventual afterfall of the event. But aside from governments and them doing or not doing their job so well, we also, I think, have a responsibility towards ourselves and towards the people that are close to us. And I think that it's also irresponsible of us not to think and really dwell on the possible consequences of us not addressing our issues. You know, there's a saying that I really like, and I can't remember right now who said it, but it wasn't me, so it's a quote. And it said that your trauma is not your responsibility. However, your healing is your responsibility. And I really like that saying, because even though most of us are not at fault for the issues that we have, most of these issues stem from our childhood, from our not so healthy relationships with others, and so on, environment and so on. We are still responsible for dealing with those issues, even if we are not the root cause of them. Because if we don't deal with those issues, we might become the root cause of someone else's issue, like our children or our loved ones. And what I would like you to do is take into account those effects and compute those costs into what you actually think therapy is worth or not. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the content, don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.